With the official trailer reveal of EA's Battlefront 2 right around the corner at Star Wars Celebration, and the promise of multiple eras and a single player campaign, here are the best ways to incorporate these eras into the sequel. So the first way is just to give us some Clone Wars, and while the expected outcome of Battlefront 2 multiplayer setting is to tie in with the upcoming Episode 8 with The Last Jedi, so we're all thinking it will be First Order and based on all of that, everyone's just begging for some more Clone Wars. The huge range of unique and breathtaking planets such as Kamino, Coruscant, and Mustafar, alongside the possibility of epic lightsaber battles with some of the most creative Jedis and Siths of the franchise, like Darth Maul, Grievous, Dooku, Mace Windu, and Yoda. It's just so many possibilities to make the best possible multiplayer action. Especially since the alternative is to give us Force Awakens era alongside the Galactic era, which may just feel way too similar to the first Battlefront, with the First Order and the Resistance simply just copying and replacing the Empire and Rebels. So while the Force Awakens era will be interesting, it really needs to be alongside Clone Wars, since failing to include Clone Wars makes the game a lot less interesting, and a lot more feeling like a carbon copy of the first Battlefront. So next is that they need to make all of the maps equally as interesting and varied, because otherwise there will be some, like the weaker maps in the first Battlefront were really obvious to pick out. For example, Jundland Wastes on Walker Assault was just horrible to play, and since we couldn't choose what we next got to play, it just made you want to not play Battlefront for as long, because you'd only play it until like a map that you didn't enjoy came up, and then you'd just leave it, and you think, do I really want to try this? Because some people wouldn't be that interested and wouldn't have enough motivation to come back and go on to other maps. So if there are only going to be a couple outstanding maps and the other just be like not too interesting, then the best thing to do is follow Call of Duty, where at the end of each game you vote for whichever map you'd like to play next. However, I know this might not be implemented because it could lead to one map being played excessively, and the entire thing would get boring, similar to how Nuketown always gets picked on Black Ops 3. Like, yes, it's a good map, it's a really good map, but playing it over and over and over again means that you just get bored of the game and you don't want to come back and play it. And the thing with Battlefront 1 was that people would play it for a bit, but there weren't enough good maps to keep you coming back, so as long as you can get to choose your next map, you'll be more likely to stay and play for another round. What would also be pretty awesome to see in the sequel is that to be able to create private matches, but then to be able to customise them. So in the first Battlefront, a skirmish mode was added, as well as the ability to create private matches. But what I'd like to see in Battlefront 2 is the ability to make a custom skirmish or a completely custom match, where you'd first select the map that you play on the planet, and then you choose the side you want to play as. So you could be normal stormtroopers, you could be First Order troopers, or you could be droids, or the clone troopers from the prequels. And then you get to choose the heroes that would support you and that you'd be able to become, like, once you've got a certain amount of points. Because I'd prefer it to be more of a class system rather than just a random pickup, because that doesn't reward your skill, that's just pure luck. And being given the ability to create our own fantasy matchups is just what Star Wars fans, they just dream of. So I'm going to list off some battles that I'd love to see, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So you could have Darth Maul versus Darth Vader, you could have Darth Vader against Kylo Ren, you could have Darth Maul versus Kylo Ren, you could have Darth Vader against Yoda, Yoda against the Emperor or Snoke, you could have Boba and Jango, the Fets, fighting each other, you could have either Fett against Captain Phasma, you could have General Grievous against literally anyone except Obi-Wan, would just be a badass new battle. You could have Mace Windu, again, he'd be pretty cool against Grievous, but he'd be pretty cool against anyone. You could have Rey against Luke, Luke fighting Yoda, and all of those, and I'm still barely scratching the surface with the combinations that you could create. And finally, the best way to incorporate Clone Wars is to give a little bit some DLC. But to be clear here, this has to be free DLC that everyone can access, because I know this is unlikely because it's EA, but it would make everyone enjoy it so much more. It would keep people coming back to play the game even like a year after its release. if they make a episode 9, if they made an episode 9 DLC that you don't have to pay 15 quid for like they did with Rogue One. If they make it free, then you're going to have a massive fan base by the time Battlefront 3 comes around, which they'd undoubtedly be making. And for DLC ideas, they could definitely make some DLC to do with the TV shows. If they're doing multiple eras, then the Clone Wars would be an obvious thing. Then the characters and storyline that they, and the planets and the setting and everything in that TV series is phenomenal. And you could bring even Darth Maul's brother. You could bring him in Savage Opress. I'm not sure if that's how you say his name. But you could bring Asajj Ventress in. You could bring Ahsoka in. And she moves straight into Star Wars Rebels, which they could also make a DLC on. With their established characters like Ezra, you've got Thrawn on the Empire side. And so that DLC also will be just as interesting as Clone Wars, as they've got such a fleshed out storyline and so many cool characters. And then, as I said before, they could make one on when Episode 9 comes out. And that would be awesome. You'd see maybe, because I'm not sure if we're going to see Snoke in his normal form, because you've seen him on hologram, obviously. But we might be able to get some actual Snoke gameplay in the Episode 9. If they make an Episode 9 DLC, you could actually get him as a character, which would be awesome to play as. We haven't really seen what extent his powers are. And then they normally make 4 DLCs. I'm not sure how many they're making for Battlefield 1, because they're obviously making them for them as well. But if it's 4, then they've obviously got one more slot to fill in, and they could be creative. They could there's such a rich Star Wars lore that you can make so many things and put it as DLC, and people will play it, but not if it's overpriced. So Battlefield 1, it's not overpriced, the DLCs. You get good stuff with it, you get good weapons, new maps, everything. So if they brought that in and made it less, you've got to make it less than a tenner for people to go and buy it. So that's what I do for DLC, and that's how they could incorporate the Clone Wars into it. And that is how I would incorporate multiple eras into EA's Star Wars Battlefront 2. If you've enjoyed, hit the like button, leave a comment down below on what DLC you'd like to see in Battlefront 2, if you think it should have any DLC, or if you think they should just give you some free updates, or just leave the base game how it is. And subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks.